The village of Blackwood was the kind of place that seemed untouched by time. Nestled deep within the misty hills of northern England, it was small, forgotten, and silent, with cobblestone streets that twisted like veins and cottages whose thatched roofs sagged beneath centuries of storms. Travelers rarely came here. The main road bypassed Blackwood long ago, and only those who had reason to come ever set foot in its shadow. At the very edge of the village, half swallowed by brambles and ivy, stood the ruin of St. Jude's Church. Its skeletal tower jutted into the gray sky like a broken tooth, its bell long fallen, its windows blackened holes. The villagers never went near it. Even children who dared each other to sneak close would only run up to the mossy graveyard wall before bolting back in terror, swearing they heard whispers rising from the earth. Eleanor Hart, a young historian from London, had come to Blackwood with a simple purpose: to write about forgotten churches of rural England. She had no love of the supernatural, no belief in ghost stories. She wanted facts, records, stonework. But something about Blackwood unsettled her from the moment she arrived. The villagers spoke in low voices when she asked about St. Jude's. They told her the church was hollow, cursed, and that nothing good ever came from those who went inside. Which, of course, made Eleanor want to see it even more. Her rented room overlooked the village square, where a dying oak stood, its branches like gnarled fingers scraping the air. That night, as she prepared her notes, she heard it, the faint toll of a bell. It rang once, and then again, slow, deliberate, though broken, as if the bell itself were cracked. Eleanor paused, pen in hand. She leaned out the window. The square was empty, bathed in fog. No church bell could have rung. The villagers had told her themselves that St. Jude's bell was gone, shattered in a storm 2 centuries ago. The toll came again, distant yet close, echoing through her bones. She told herself it was imagination, the creak of wood, the sound of wind against stone, and yet she could not shake the thought that it was calling her. The next morning she made her way to the church. The path was overgrown, lined with gravestones tilting at odd angles like broken teeth. The iron gate was rested, half off its hinges. A crow croaked above, then fell silent, as if the air itself held its breath. The church door hung open, its wood warped with rot. Eleanor stepped inside, notebook in hand, and immediately felt the temperature drop. It was damp, the air heavy with mildew and the faint copper tang of old blood. Shafts of light cut through holes in the roof, illuminating pews warped and blackened, as though burned. The altar at the far end was nothing but stone, cracked in 2. And then she saw them. Carvings. Along the walls, etched deep into the stone, were hundreds of names. Some were old, their letters eroded, others disturbingly fresh. Eleanor traced her fingers over one. Catherine Wells, 1812. Another, Thomas Gray, 1901. Another carved shallowly, as if done by shaking hands. Daniel Reed, 1979. She shivered. These weren't inscriptions of memory. They weren't gravestones. They were records. "Those are the ones it took!" The voice startled her. She spun to see an old man standing in the doorway, leaning on a cane. His eyes were clouded with cataracts, but sharp beneath the milky veil. His clothes were ragged, his skin pale. "You shouldn't be here. The hollow doesn't like to be disturbed," he said. Eleanor asked him what he meant. The man only shook his head. "They buried it under this church long ago, something that should never have been unearthed. But the ground rotted, and it got out. It calls. It always calls." When she pressed further, he only muttered, "If you hear the bell, it's already too late." Then he was gone, vanishing into the mist. That night Eleanor couldn't sleep. The bell came again, louder, closer, every toll echoing inside her skull. She pressed her hands over her ears, but still heard it, vibrating through her bones, through the floorboards. Desperate, she lit a lantern and made her way back to St. Jude's. The moment she entered, the bell stopped. Silence. Then, a creak beneath her feet. She looked down. The flagstones before the altar were cracked, uneven. With trembling hands, she pushed one aside and found a staircase leading down into the earth. She hesitated only a moment before descending, lantern light flickering on the wet stone walls. The air grew colder, thicker, as if she were wading into water. Whispers slithered around her, too faint to understand. Her lantern guttered, threatening to die. At the bottom lay a vast crypt, and in the center, chained to the floor, was a coffin. Not wood, but iron, its surface carved with the same endless list of names, some scratched deep, others fresh, still jagged. The iron was warped outward, as though something inside had pressed against it. Eleanor stepped closer. The air hummed. Her vision blurred. She reached out and touched the coffin, and the bell tolled again. Not in the distance, but inside her skull. The iron split. A seam cracked open, releasing a breath of foul air that burned her lungs. The whispers swelled into screams, and from the coffin rose a shape, shifting, impossible. It had no form, no face, just hollow. A void in the shape of a man, a shadow that bent the lantern light into itself. It spoke without sound. The words appeared in her mind. Another name must be written. Eleanor staggered back, but the crypt walls pulsed, alive, pressing her forward. She tried to run, but the shadows coiled around her legs, dragging her closer. The iron coffin pulsed, the names glowing faintly, and she understood. Every name carved there was a sacrifice, a life consumed. She screamed as the void reached into her chest. Cold flooded her body, her vision blurred, and the last thing she saw was her own hand, trembling, carving letters into the stone with impossible strength not her own. Her name, Eleanor Hart. Weeks later, a traveler passing through Blackwood asked about the young woman who'd come to study the church. The villagers shook their heads. Some said she'd gone home. Others said she'd never arrived at all. But if you go into St. Jude's, though no one dares, you'll see it, carved fresh and clean among the others. Eleanor Hart, 2023. And if you linger too long, when the fog is thick and the night is still, you'll hear it, the bell, calling another name.